I know. Uh-huh. Did you or he book the conference for our meeting today? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll be starting momentarily. Just bear with us, waiting for the food to show up. But thank you for your patience. We'll be starting in a couple minutes. I sound like that. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. All right. My name is Bobby Brito Oliveira. I'm the Assistant Director here in the Multicultural Student Service Center, double alum of this university by way of the Talent Development Program, and I want to welcome you all to our annual Native American Heritage Month Kickoff panel. Thank y'all for coming and being here. Like most days, it's a busy part of the semester and definitely a busy time frame in the semester, so I want to thank you for taking your time for being with us. And I want to thank all of our Native brothers, sisters, and two-spirit people who are here this evening, whose lands we occupy. Thank you all as well. I want to start off by bringing our young brother Trey Hamlin up, who is a leader for the Native American Student Organization. He's going to grant us with the land acknowledgement. Young Trey.
Thank you, Bobby. The University of Rhode Island occupies a traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. We honor and respect the enduring and continuing relationship between the indigenous people and this land by teaching and learning more about their history and present-day communities, and by becoming stewards of the land we too inhabit. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. And I must say, every time I call on Trey to deliver, he shows up. He's given multiple land acknowledgments. He comes to many of your programs. His art is decorated somewhere on this wall from our Culture and Canvas event. So, Trey, as always, appreciate you, brother. Right now, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sonia Thomas, who is going to provide a welcome song passed down from Narragansett elder Ella Sekatu Wilcox.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So just to give you a little history, this song, Ella Sekatu Wilcox was married to my uncle. And she and her daughter, Myra, taught me this song when I was a little girl, and we used to sing it quite often. It was a song written by them, and it's a welcome song from the now ancestor of the Narragansett tribe. Telawajin kel be the way, Nicolajich Kwam and Guade, Akwe Aporagenyo Sabi, Ubicha Wagin wa ie, Hia 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 Hey, Hia 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 Hey, Hia 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 Hey. Hia, 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 hey. Thank you.
Thank you again, Sonia, for that. Right now, I would like to acknowledge some of our URI senior leadership who are in the room. I believe we have our Provost, Barbara Wolf. You want to raise your hand? We also have from the Office of Community Equity Diversity, Assistant Vice President Michelle Fonts. In holding it down for President Palanche, who could not be here with us today, is Ms. Mary Palanche. And I'm now going to ask that Provost Barbara Wolf come up and share some opening remarks on behalf of the URI leadership team.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. It is really, truly a delight to be here this afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am here on behalf of President Palanche. Unfortunately, he's not feeling that well. He's a little bit under the weather, so practicing good public health, he is staying home. So we thank him for that, but he does wish he could be here. So he asked that I share a couple of remarks with you. First of all, we do want to make sure that we thank all of our participants who are here today, the MSSC and the NASO who organized this event. It's a very important event, certainly important today in terms of this month, but it's important to us throughout the year and many years to come. Also to the alumni, the current students, and the community members who are speaking here today. Thank you for your time and making the time to be here and to recognize this event. It's so important that we do have events like this, again, to recognize the importance of the indigenous community to the University of Rhode Island and the partnerships that we have established. Here at URI, it's important for a number of reasons. One, it's really, really great that we have the partnership that we do have. We've been able to work closely in terms of drafting a land acknowledgement, again, with the tribe to do that. Developing the Narragansett Tribe Scholarship Program, which we're very excited because that helps many, many people, so thank you. Working closely with the Tamaqua Museum to bring their presence to our campus and helping to educate individuals about the indigenous population. And the Narragansett Picnic for Families at the President's House, where I met many of you there this past fall. Likewise, we are also very happy to participate in the powwow when we can, and that's been very, very fun, I know, for the College of Nursing. I know that our Multicultural Student Service Center is working on other events this month, so please stay tuned because those are going to be very exciting to participate in. And then also today, I hope you enjoy the celebration of the traditional foods, and I thank you to the Sly Fox Den for participating in this event and for being here with the food. Enjoy important discussions that are about to come to you by our panelists. And again, this month celebrates the diverse and important ways that the Native Americans have shaped our history. But at URI, it is important that we continue to learn from our Indigenous people, explore opportunities to partner and strengthen our partnerships, and celebrate their culture and their traditions. So thank you all for being part of this and enjoy the events.
Thank you. Thank you again, Provost Wolf, for representing senior leadership. And on behalf of the MSSC and NASO and NAAC, I want to thank senior leadership for their constant support, both financial and just being a physical presence for these initiatives. Before moving forward, I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge some other folk in the room. If you are a member of the Native American Advisory Council, would you please rise so we can acknowledge you? If you are a member of the Native American Student Organization, please rise so we can acknowledge you. Lastly, another recognition I want to definitely provide is those who stepped up at this university to provide advisorship for NASO over the years. I believe we have Dr. Kendall Moore. Is Kendall Moore here right now? Okay, Dr. Kendall Moore is in class right now, but she represents the College of Arts and Sciences Journalism Department. But we do have Dr. Amelia Moore from the. We got one other doctor. Yes. You don't mind raising up Dr. Moore? Dr. Moore stepped up many years now for NASO and just being a presence for them, being a resource for them, being a guide for them, and we appreciate you. And lastly, Gerald Williams, who's not here right now, but he has been a long-standing advisor for NASO and making sure that, along with Dr. Morris, both of them, that this group has a presence on campus, assisting them with their rebranding, regrouping, and we appreciate you all and your initiatives with NASO. Thank you. Speaking of NASO, I want to call up one of our other student leaders, and before I introduce this person, I want to say I remember them coming in as a freshman through TD and seeing them work with G specifically, again, trying to revamp NASO and has done an amazing job with it. This person is now a senior, and it's so great to see some of the younger generation, our first and second year students, follow their lead. And I acknowledge you every day, Vans, you already know that, and I appreciate you and your leadership and for being prepared to pass that torch on to the next generation of NASO to make sure this ball continues. So Vance, please come up and bless us with a poem.
Thank you, Bobby. And speaking of recognition to everybody, I do want to recognize Bobby as well for putting this together, both last year, for the years to come, and all your hard work too, so thank you. So the poem that I chose today is in celebration of this month, also kind of tying into Thanksgiving being part of this, so kind of just keeping in mind, you know, giving thanks and sharing and, you know, caring for everybody and one another. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before talking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift. In reciprocity for what you have taken, sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever.
All right. Thank you, Vance, per usual. So I know you heard in Provost Wolf's remarks that we do have food by Sly Fox Den, which is authentic native cuisine, very local right here in Charleston. We have it set up in the back, but before we dig in, I want to ask for Ms. Lorenz Spears to come up and provide us with a blessing for the food.
Askway Kwasin, Namanatuman, Napioman, Ingin Kisakwat, Nashpi, Natikwanahi, Tahanonash, Katabatutamish, Katantua, Wuchi Wami, Nawamani Tonk Natonksawag. Katabatash Katantua Wuchi Nipawus Ka Matakwasag, Katabatash Katantua Wuchi Wita, Ka Peshamwak, Katabatash Katantua Wuchi Wayapai. Katabatash Katantua Wuchi Sokanun, Katabatash Katantua Wuchi Wami, Nawamani Tonkna Tonksawag, Ninash. And so what I said to you in our language is first hello, and then that we come today with open hearts to give thanks for all the gifts from Creator. And we give thanks to the Creator for this beautiful day, for the sun and the clouds, the rain and the winds. We give thanks for all of our beloved relations, meaning all of creation, the two-legged, four-legged, those that fly, those that swim, those that creep and crawl, everything that is part of our humanity, or that's probably not the right word, but our Nukasaki, our Mother Earth. And so thank you, and I guess an extra thank you to Sherry and folks for our food. And so I could say, mi tash, which is like let's eat. So katabatash.
Thank you. So there's plenty of food. There's no particular order, but I want to make sure our tribal elders eat first. So, Wanda, I know your mom.
She doesn't think she's an elder, though.
And after that, feel free to help yourselves. There's plenty of food, and we'll begin the panel shortly after. And we'll be able to eat while we hear from the panel also. Thank you. Huh? Huh? No.
I thought about that. Like, you always have that skill.
No. Yeah.
Don't worry, listen. Everything
Dalton. I had emailed you. I'm from, I
Oh,
work with Sea
CCE.
Grant and
Nice to
stuff,
meet you
so
officially.
Nice to meet
You also.
Thanks for.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
You might want to announce what the food is. Like, you might want to announce what the food, like, what is the food that was served.
Oh, bison balls, strawberry. I don't want to make it up.
So you might want to let people know so what they're because like I think it's like kale and squash soup.
Yep.
It looks like. I don't know what the rice has in it and what the meat is. You might want to let people know.
Let me ask one of them. 'Cause I don't want to.
I have one of them come and say just to let you know what's on it.
I don't want to butcher it. Let me just find the menu. Let me just let people know what's on it.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that at all. I just know. That's what you told me. Jade.
And what is this we're talking about?
Just the food. What's on it? Like I know there's bison. It's the meat.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see.
I didn't even look at it.
I have the note. I'm trying to think of where the invoice. Jade.
Yeah, there you go.
Invoice. Jade. Gal. It wasn't that email address though. Secretary?
Yep. Succotash. Everybody makes it different. That's the only thing. It's probably Three Sisters though. Corn cakes with strawberry. Yep. Three Sisters rice. That's basically if it's Three Sisters rice, it's corn, beans, squash. That's what the Three Sisters are.
Okay.
Venison meatballs. Okay, venison. We all know what that is. Yes, yeah.
That's everything, right?
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is what it is.
All right.
I know. It's like,
I was like, oh, shit,
just
I
in
don't
case anybody asks. Right?
Yeah. I'll let it be known.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if we captured the closing. I can't remember. Did we write down the closing songs? Or
No.
not? Well, when we close out, if we wanted to close out with
Yes.
the song, then that would be the song that I was talking about, the Elder's Lullaby.
Elder's Lullaby.
Yep.
Closing. Elder's Lullaby.
Yep, and then I'll give the history of the rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Excuse me, everybody. Just so you know what you're eating, the soup is succotash. There's corn cakes with strawberry chutney, Three Sisters rice, venison meatballs, and the salad is Sly Fox cranberry vinaigrette, and there's a strawberry lemonade also. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So girl, you still that my department chair was like, why don't we just come to this thing? And I didn't even have to. I didn't say it. I didn't say peep. Yeah,
There
it's
it
so
goes.
good.
Thank you.
Bobby.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for
coming.
doing this. This is
Appreciate
great.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wasn't quite sure if that is the core of the group. There's that many sort of students, or there are more that just might not have been able to be here today.
There are,
Last year?
last year there were 4. This year there were 9. In Roman, 10, because as of yesterday we Johnson
Okay.
it's about 10.
There are more on campus. I don't realize there just might not be. I was thinking like
10 are definitely, 9 are definitely involved.
You can't expect 100%.
No, the numbers are already small anyway.
I know, yeah.
And that's the part of the problem with trying to revamp it is that, you know, the aim is to finish graduates. They take that with them. You know what I mean? There weren't any
It's tough with a lot of these small organizations. Active Minds is too. Is like just the number of students, and then the energy can leave sometimes, and reinvigorating it can be challenging.
That's the challenge. It's like not being active like 9 to 10 and then upperclassmen. You know, second years kind of need to carry that torch. That's why you have trades and sophomore, me as a freshman. So having that group be able to come in and be active, so we're not recruiting real every time we graduate. That's
And hopefully the scholarships will help too.
that's part of the also. Yeah. Rich, I see him again for the next year. So, little by little, making progress.
Yeah, that's what it takes. Little by little, chip away. That's good. I love the display over there. That's kind of
That's what tomorrow's event.
stuff. Well, I hope things are continuing to thrive here and go well.
Trying my best.
Yeah, good job. You really do. And I'm glad Kelsey's more collected because she's been wonderful with just keeping us posted on things and we don't always come across, events and so forth, and meeting with students to make sure the timing is right.
I love great feedback from Monday. It's really good feedback. My mom, president, came and said this was hard. And they're going to continue to grow that also. About that partnership.
All right, good stuff.
Thank you.
Some of this good food.
All right.
Oh, man.
Mr. Shout out.
Well, what?
Mr. Shout out.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What?
Keep
What
it
are you
like
doing?
seconds later, too.
What are you doing?
You and Maria, it was a collective vote. It was you and Maria and Kendall. All right. Stepping up to 7 with vice capacity.
All right.
I had NBA since then.
Appreciate that. They got no members yet. They got no non-members. They don't got no non-member students. Oh, you got that? No.
I'm not sure that when next to register they are Greek life. And the brother, the brother behind them, they looked for him and they got great for him. They wanted to come to see the members. They wanted to get more involved in our cultural society. Part of that movement. Yes, of course.
We have a clip on eCampus for the ENG, I can't remember the number, 33 something for the Native American Literature course for spring.
Let me see, eCampus.
Trying to get our kids in there. We already have 17 registered
Okay.
for the class, but I want to make sure that. Can you go down? Look like you're going to enroll. There's already 17 registered. I want to make sure our people are in there too. And you can mention that on the TV. Thanks. And what is it again? 3? Okay, thank you. I should know this, right?
What's the maximum?
Yourselves, please. I'm a secretary. Yes.
Very good. Good to see you. How did you meet that got Jay?
I mean, who's really outnumbered?
So we said, okay, we need a marketing PR. It was what we did.
I'm gonna do the introduction. I'm gonna do. Hello, everybody. We're going to ask that our panelists come up and take their seats at the front. Get your side already, brother. Anywhere you want, bro. Trey, you got his number? Where's the bottle, the red one?
Hello?
All right. Did y'all enjoy the food? Right, glad to hear it. So thanks again to Sly Fox Den. Again, they are located in Sly Fox Den 2, actually. They are located in Charleston. Feel free to visit them. Before we get to the panel, I want to make sure I announce something on behalf of tribal member Wanda Hopkins. We were going to be announcing that there's a new Native American literature course that's being offered. It is English 338. Description is contemporary literatures and contemporary works of Native American culture. So again, that is Wanda Hopkins, and that is taken. Yes. So please be sure to spread the word and enroll in this course. It's very important. Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 4:45. So thank you, Wanda, and please again, Mondays and Wednesdays 3:30 to 4:45. Wanda Hopkins, English 338, Study of Literature written by Native Americans. Now we're going to jump into this panel. We have someone joining us soon, but we're going to start just to be mindful of time. In 2001, we covered missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, and Two-Spirit people as a part of our panel. And last year, we covered the miseducation of Native people, which served the purpose of allowing Native American brothers, sisters, and Two-Spirit people an opportunity to tell their story, which is often overlooked and unheard. This year's topic will center around Native Americans and their access to education. And not a lack thereof, we're not aiming to have a deficit approach, we're also solution-driven. And I'm going to start by introducing our moderator, Mr. Raymond Watson. Raymond Two Hawks Watson is a community advocate, educator, and cultural practitioner, convener, and business professional with 16 years of experience in nonprofit leadership and executive administration. Watson's skills consist of program development and implementation, grant writing, motivational speaking, leadership and cultural development consulting, community organizing, and event planning, supplemented by an extensive background in promoting and supporting cultural equity and cultural development initiatives in the Rhode Island community. Watson has a bachelor's degree in political science from Union College in New York, and a master's degree in community planning here at the University of Rhode Island, and a Juris Doctorate from Rogers University School of Law. That's right. Yeah, give it up for that Juris Doctorate. Watson was consulting co-lead for development of the City of Providence Municipal Reparations Reconciliation Framework and is recipient of the Rhode Island Foundation's 2016 Carter Innovation Fellowship, and a 2021 recipient of the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award for Voluntary Service and mayoral appointee to the City of Providence Municipal Reparations Commission 2022, and is the 2023 recipient of the Justice Assistance Neil J. Houston Jr. Memorial Award. Watson is currently the CEO and founder of the Providence Cultural Equity Initiative and the policy director of the Center for Indigenous Peoples' Rights, two nonprofits based in Providence, Rhode Island. Before I had this brother come up, I said it last year, but I gotta say it again. This man is the primary reason why I went into higher education. I remember being 14 years old on 288 William Street in Fox Point, Providence, and being told to stay upstairs with his cousins because there's a recruiter coming downstairs to speak to this man on a Saturday morning. And I remember coming downstairs and saying, like, oh, we can do this. People look like me do this. And he wasn't thinking that at the time, probably 18 years old, not seeing the influence that he had. But that's why it's important to know people are always watching you. And Raymond, I watched you. I'm proud of you. I'm glad to share community with you. And none other than our moderator, Raymond Two Hawks Watson.
And could we have another round of applause for Bobby, the great work he's doing here? You all right?
So first of all, Akwani Natawamag, peace be unto you, family. I'm very honored to be invited down here again this year to moderate another distinguished panel of fantastic individuals who are going to share some of their perspective around issues that are very important to Indigenous folks. And of course, it's always good to be back here around URI's campus with so many different people I see and know and have grown to know over the years. So it's Katapatush for the opportunity. And what I want to first do is apologize. I'm in this thing called fatherhood. So I have to get back up to Providence to pick my son up from school at 2:15 or else he's going to give me an earful. He's in pre-K right now. So I'll be leaving right around 1:40, but I'll be with you till then. And before we do anything, I just want to go down the line and just ask our panelists if they would be so kind as to briefly introduce themselves. So we'll start right here at the side that's closest to me with Sonia.
Good afternoon again. My name is Sonia Askawawa Thomas. Askawawa meaning wildflower or flowers that grow wild. I am the daughter of the war chief of the Narragansett Indian tribe, John Thomas, and the former chief of, I believe it was about 32 years, Matthew Thomas. I have native bloodlines from all four grandparents, from the Quina Wampanoag tribe, the Oglala Lakota Sioux, the Micmac in Canada, and my tradition, who I am, how I was raised, is definitely Narragansett.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Edmonds. I'm a second-year accounting major. I'm a member of the Wampanoag tribe, and I'm the treasurer for Nassau.
Good afternoon. My name is Rich Burrell. I'm a second-year finance major, member of the Narragansett Indian Nation, and member of Nassau.
Askwikwasin, Nataswis, Loren Spears, Englishot. I'm Loren Spears. I am Narragansett, enrolled citizen. I am an alum of URI, a former leader of Nassau 100 years ago, back in the 80s, and I don't know what else I was going to say. And the executive director of Tamaquag Museum.
Hello, Max Scott. I'm also an alum. When Bobby asked what year, it really took me back to realize that I'm quite old. But I was also part of Nassau when I was here, a member of the Narragansett Nation, and visiting professor in the Center for the Study of Slavery and Justice at Brown.
Very good. Round of applause for all our panelists. All right. So I'm just going to come and ask questions, and if any of our panelists would care to respond, they can do that. No pressure if you decide not to. But I'll ask the first question here. And there's a series of them, 7 altogether, and then hopefully after that, if there's enough time, we can take some questions from the audience as well. But first question. While there are unique perspectives and identities amongst the Native American population, what do you see as some of the barriers with Indigenous populations and access to higher education? Any brave soul want to start on that one? Lauren?
There we go. Yes. Okay. There's so many things, but the barriers start with systems and structures of power, in my opinion. And so I think that a lot of the work that all of us are doing is trying to make people aware of those systems that have been put in place to create barriers, whether that's economic barriers, whether that's access barriers. I always think of the stories of TD and how certain school districts blocked the TD officers from even talking to Native students. I was one of those students that never even knew TD existed. And so the idea that there's these opportunities out there that we're just blocked from the information for, I think that's part of, you know, the systems and structures of power. There's so many things that get in the way of creating access for Indigenous students, but I'll leave my comments to that for now and let someone else share some thoughts.
Okay. Was that Max?
Hello. So I'm going to start with an apology because I'm a historian and I kind of take a long historical lens to everything. My family hates it. They, say we just wanted to pay the tip. We didn't need like a dissertation about the history of tipping. So if I get long-winded, then I'm like, okay. But I think to really answer that question, you have to take a long lens, right? A long historical lens to really understand. So if we go back to colonial times, education is reserved for the elite, right? But not just the elite, it's also for indigenous persons, right? But it's for indigenous persons in a certain way, right? It's in a way in which they can become not heathen, all right, or not barbaric, which is what the colonists called them. It was a way in which they could become Christians, right? And if you are the one who's interpreting God, which is what the colonists claimed that they did, then that was a lot of power. So this relationship to education in the beginning is about power, right? And then if we fast forward to the American Revolution, we're talking about education now becoming a civic duty, right? Now we're dismantling some of those old ideas about centralized power and giving those to individuals, right? The people that are now kings themselves or kingmakers with their votes, right? So now education becomes something that is empowering individuals, right, over this centralized power theme. And then if we fast forward to another war, the Civil War, we have education becoming institutionalized, especially for the newly freed black population, right? 4 million people. Now, education is important now because the system that Americans had argued for hundreds of years were needed to control these people no longer existed. So now education is going to provide some of those safeguards, provide a way for them to become meaningful and useful members of society through this education. So the question becomes, what does education look like at that time, right? And there's actually a debate back and forth between people you've heard of, right? Du Bois and Booker T about what that education is gonna look like. Booker T wins out, right? This vocational type of education, mostly because it fits with the time. So what I'm talking about is the Industrial Revolution, right? What capital and industry needed at that time was this workforce, a standardized, compliant workforce, right? That could do what was needed in this type of this new economy. So this is things like monotonous, right? Long work. Things like being able to be punctual, efficient, right? Things like valuing the quality of the product, right? This becomes tenets of education, right? And this is what becomes important. Around the same time, we have people, the leaders in education. So, for example, Samuel Dutton, who writes the Morse Speller, right, which becomes a really big deal. He's a leader in education and pedagogical thought for a long time, talking about this being a responsibility of white America, right? This is an uplift, right, because white America is naturally, according to Dutton, mentally and physically superior, right? So then education is also embedded with these ideas of white supremacy. And if we take all of those iterations of institutionalized education and look at them, right, in view of indigenous practices, indigenous peoples, and if you think about the poem that Vange read and what was being valued in that poem, these are antithetical, right, to everything. This whole history is antithetical to the way that these people, their worldview, right, their life ways, right? If we're talking about power, if we're talking about individuality, if we're talking about valuing the accumulation of things or the exploitation of resources, both human and environmental, right? Or white supremacy. This is all very different to the essential being of a lot of indigenous peoples. So if that's the history, yeah, that's a barrier, right? That's a problem for indigenous communities, indigenous persons as they try to navigate these systems that were established, like Loren was saying, these systems that were established almost in opposition to their very beings.
Thank you. Round of applause for that response. Very informative. Any of our other panelists want to follow up those remarks? Very good.
I'm not going to say it.
All right. Let's move on to our second question. And I'm going to ask Sonia to answer this one. What are some of the cultural needs and wants of tribal scholars navigating a predominantly white institution?
As something outwardly tangible, first of all, I think of campuses. What can be taught without lecture? What can be taught without having to be in a classroom? If I were to simply wander around, where's my sense of belonging? So with that being said, you know, and you know, this buildup of community and structures that are put in place, I think of statues that come along with modern day descriptions, not something that constantly puts us in the past, but makes our presence known to this day that we're still here. Pictures that are put about that also have modern day descriptions, I think is very important. And I'm so happy to hear that there is a class being taught for the people by the people, because that was another important thing that I think about quite often. And another thing that I think about also is holding ourselves accountable for our education so that we can enter the doors and be at the table to be able to open the doors and empower others in our community to do the same, because we are powerful in numbers. We are powerful when we can speak to power, oftentimes in their language. Being in a dual society isn't always easy. Our norms are not the colonizers' norms. And culture is supposed to be celebrated. And because we come from such different values and what we hold high, I feel like if more of us would be able to be at the table. I have my bachelor's degree in organizational leadership and change. I'm currently at Roger Williams University for community development, and my next step is to receive my doctorate in educational leadership so that I can be at the table. These degrees aren't for me, but for the people. And I feel the more that we can put these letters behind our names and be at these tables, we can demand things that otherwise are decided without us, but for us.
Thank you. Anyone else want to respond to the question? No pressure?
One of the key aspects I feel would be great for scholars on campus is community building, like you said. And what I'm involved with is NASA, which is the Native American Student Organization. And what I like about that is that it provides a platform for young people like myself to get together and make a voice for all of us as a collective on campus. And I feel that's a very important aspect of making sure we're known. Because I feel a constant part of our identity is fighting the idea that we don't exist. It's active resistance just every day. So I think having a group like NASA kind of together, we could fight, today we could make ourselves not just a figment of the past, not something you just read about in school, textbooks in grade school, but we're here, and we're here to stay. We're here to continue to be known.
Thank you. Round of applause for that answer, please.
I'd like to add upon that. I think it's beautiful, like we were saying, NASA. It's a place where natives can be native, you know, young scholars who are Native American. And this hasn't, like, I've been in a predominantly white school systems my entire life. I've been, you know, one of the only kids in the class of color that was Native. And towards the end of school, like specifically high school, we started seeing these groups. We had an after-school program where we made Native American things. We learned about like the history, stories, creation stories, things like that. And it wasn't just for Natives. It was open to all. And coming to college and seeing, as soon as I get here, telling people that I'm Native American, oh, we have a group for Native American students. It made me proud, made me happy to think that, wow, they do have places for people like me, and we are welcome. It's just good to have a safe space to be yourselves, to be around people that are similar to you.
Very good. Round of applause.
I just wanted to add one thing to that. I think everybody did an awesome job. But one of the things that I'd like to see in the future is that the Native American Student Organization actually has its own space in place so that generation after generation will know where to go and can see the things that the groups before them have done, and it can be ongoing.
Round of applause for that answer as well. We got one more thing from Sonia, yes.
And I would also like to see more plays, indigenous plays, like teaching through the arts can be very important. We all learn differently, and sometimes having students of other backgrounds and other cultures having to play these roles, they learn something a little bit more personal than they would have just sitting in front of a lecture. So definitely to see different cultures, speaking of indigenous cultures, being included in those type of classes as well.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. I'm going to ask Rich if Rich would be the first one to answer this question. The University of Rhode Island offers a tuition waiver for enrolled Narragansett tribal members. In what additional ways would you like to see the university support as it relates to the retention and sense of belonging for current scholars of the Narragansett tribe? And I think we already started touching base on this, but if you'd be so kind as to expound some more on it.
I feel like the tuition waiver is beautiful, and it's honestly why I'm here today. But to have a sense of belonging, I feel like we should really publicize this tuition waiver more for the Narragansett people, because I didn't really learn about this until maybe junior year, end of senior year of high school, and then that really pushed me more towards going into higher education, things like that. I feel like if you really want people to belong and feel like they're really meant to be here, publicize this. I know many people my age, my cousins, who went to school with me, and they didn't necessarily know too much about it or hear about it. But I feel like if it was really out there more, we would feel more welcome.
I just agree really wholeheartedly that the outreach, it's a fairly new program, just for fairness. But I do think that there's some barriers to the communications, and it goes back to what Mac is saying about the history of our people. And the reality is our students that are high school students, they're in every district in the state of Rhode Island, not one space, so the outreach has to be more complex in order to reach the students. And then to also kind of build on community-led organizations and alumni, the current students that are going to become alumni, to continue to outreach and kind of create mechanisms. And that's kind of where I was getting at. If there was a specific spot that became the NASO spot, it becomes this space and place that information starts to show up repeatedly and the students can share in various ways, and it just kind of continues on.
Very good. Now, Mark, I'm going to ask you, there's a part A to that question. How do you think the university can support other indigenous/native students who are not enrolled with the Narragansett tribe?
So, my personal feelings as Wampanoag and not Narragansett is that, a lot of the same things apply, I feel like, outreach, but in the sense of, at some point going beyond Rhode Island and more to the New England as a whole, I'd feel like, there's plenty of other tribes that I feel like the campus could invite to cultural practitioners, artists, authors, people of leaders in the local community or New England as a whole. And also, there are other ideas that there are students here that may have a connection, but maybe never had the chance to fully realize that before going to college. I think, like I said with Nassau, that can also help scholars who know they have a connection but need to teach themselves about their culture and their heritage. So I feel like that's another avenue that scholars from all walks of tribal identity could benefit from.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I actually thought about this question a lot, and I think sometimes holding events that are all-inclusive, maybe NATO having the lead on having a resource page, a campus resource page, particularly around Native or Indigenous scholarships that are out there and how to go about getting these scholarships. Because a lot of times it's financial situations that hold us back from being able to partake. Hooking them up with genealogy sometimes could be helpful, or knowing the difference between having tribal funds versus Rhode Island or the Indian councils, which can be more of a paper trail if you can lead your lineage back to somebody that was an enrolled member. Just knowing these little things that oftentimes because you lived it and you walked it. But if you're just newly being introduced to your people, but you know that is where you belong, and you feel in the vibrations and frequencies that is your sense of belonging, then to just have more events that introduce you to the funding streams, or just to find out who and what you come from, sometimes is empowering within itself, and your feet will start to do the walking.
Very good.
Just a last add-on, everybody's saying great things, but just that the Native American Advisory Committee, we're also advocating for, the Narragansett one was specifically because this university as a land-grant institution is on Narragansett land, but that didn't mean that we're not interested in them also creating other avenues for scholarships and financial support for Native students from the region. And so we keep advocating for that as well, and then also advocating and creating mechanisms of education for the people in enrollment services and admissions and things like that to know where those funds are, to guide and mentor Native students that are coming from other places.
I'm going to be very brief, but I just wanted to say something. I came at the question a little bit different. Because there are members of the administration and things like that in here, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say the way that I thought about this question. So last year, just a year ago, the American Indian Fund released a report that said 36% of Native American students who enroll in a four-year institution graduate within 6 years, right? And they stop keeping track of it for 6 years. This is compared to 60% of the population as a whole. I teach my students that whenever you see a glaring inequality across groups, there's only two ways you can explain that inequality, right? There's either something in the system that is creating and perpetuating this inequity, or there's something wrong with the people. I'm not saying there's something wrong with the people, right? We know there's nothing wrong with the people here. There's something in the system. These institutions were created purposefully to exclude and erase indigenous peoples. That was the point. The most famous indigenous institution for education is Carlisle. Richard Pratt killed the Indian, right? Saved the man. That's baked into the system. You have to be intentional about identifying and addressing those challenges that are built into the system in a meaningful way. We can't get all these students into URI and not support them in significant ways, creating the communities that people were talking about here. It's a responsibility for the university to do that.
Thank you. Max, I'm going to come right back to you with our next question, if you wouldn't mind. And I like this particular question because background and interested in this area. Why and how do you think the Supreme Court decision and its attack on affirmative action may impact Indigenous scholars? And what are some of the proactive ways that the university can assist in minimizing its impact?
I'm sorry. The history again. All right. Okay, so the problem, I don't think it does at all, and I'm going to explain why. There's a conflation here, right? Affirmative action comes out of the civil rights movement, right? The first time the affirmative action term is used is in 1961. It's John F. Kennedy, and what he's writing about is businesses have to affirmatively, right, make sure that discrimination is not happening in order to get government contracts, right? The reason why this happens and exists is because, contrary to popular belief, the Constitution is a negative rights document. What that means is the Constitution prevents the government from taking rights away. It does not allow the government, in most instances, to protect rights or to ensure rights. It doesn't. That's why things that do those have to be extra to the Constitution. So it has to be an executive order, which affirmative action in this case was. Or it has to be something like an act, like the Civil Rights Act. It cannot be part of the Constitution because it cannot do those things, right? So this comes out of a time when people were trying to assess and address deep social inequalities, right, based on race, right? There was a report, the Kerner Commission report, comes out after the riots that happened all over America in 1968, and it says, what people thought it was going to say was what the Moynihan report earlier had said, is that it's the people, right? Black families, right? There's these challenges, the community. That's not what the Kerner report said. It said it's the white people, right? It said it's racism, right? It's what has happened institutionally to these communities that created this problem. That's what affirmative action is. It's an affirmative, positive plan or program to address a need that existed that the Constitution could not. There's a really influential article that came out in 2012. It's called Decolonization is Not a Metaphor by Tuck and Yang. And what the authors are arguing is that decolonization cannot be a remedy for social ills. It's very specific to a very specific event. The stealing and death of indigenous peoples in community, in their lands, in their communities. That's what it is, right? It's not affirmative action. It's not a racial thing, right? It's a attempt to repair a harm that had nothing to do with race, that is very particular and unique to indigenous persons. So the Supreme Court decision has nothing to do with colleges and universities, institutions who are trying to decolonize and figure out ways in which to address colonialism, right, and the legacy of colonialism. Those are affirmative action is for race.
Very good.
Thank you. I'd just like to add just a little bit to what Mac's saying, which is always on point and fabulous, is just, yeah, I think so, is just also thinking about the understanding of indigenous people, not just as a racial, if you will, group, but as citizens of individual nations that have nation-to-nation relationships with the U.S. federal government, which is different than any other immigrant community group or ethnicity that comes to this country. And I think when you think about that question around the Supreme Court, I think that's where it also diverges in that nation-to-nation relationship and citizens as dual citizens of our indigenous nation and now the United States.
Thank you.
Really quickly, I just want to encourage the university to understand your truth and to know that you want a campus that is all-inclusive. You know the truth of how many people are being accepted in the university and what backgrounds they come from and those type of things. So I just want to encourage you guys to not lose sight of the progress that has been made, continuously seek the progress that is needed so that there is a sense of belonging for all people.
Round of applause, please. I am going to pose this next question and ask if Loren would be the one to start us off with the dialogue, but at this time I am going to make my way out. So once again, Katapatush, thank you once again for the opportunity to be here. Thank you to all of our panelists for allowing me to lead this very, very informative discussion. And I look forward to seeing some of the great action that comes out of this to make URI a better community. So, Bob, if you come up, and I'll ask this last question to Loren, for me at least. Loren, in what ways does your position allow room for you to advocate and provide space for your cultural values, either as a current student or in your professional capacity?
Thank you. Safe travels. So, of course, from my professional capacity at Tamaquag Museum, I think that my position puts me in a lot of rooms. You know, I get the opportunity to be in rooms with presidents of universities, not just this one, but others in the state as well. And it allows me to advocate for Indigenous students, for future Indigenous students, for opportunities in every way possible, whether that's job training, whether that's cultural opportunities to represent our culture within whatever institution that is, creating opportunities for small business development, entrepreneurship within the Native community, and creating those bridges between institutions across the region, really, and the Native community. And so, I literally leverage whatever power I have in every room that I'm in, and it's created opportunities, and it takes a village. It's not one person. Sometimes I open a door, but it takes a whole team. I think about the Native American Scholarship. I had opportunities to be in rooms and have conversations, but it was a whole team on the Native American Advisory, and really all the people that walked before us that led groundwork before that made this happen now. So I think that, when I have anybody that's in the political sphere's ear, I'm always pushing in every way I can. And I think as, these young people, they're gaining a certain sense of power just by being students. And so they're using their voices, and they're, having leadership in this room, hearing them. And I think the more they understand the power that they have, and the more they're in other rooms, you just have to leverage it every way you can, and hoping that you're doing what you've been taught to do, which is to make change that impacts, 7 generations beyond you. And that's what I try to do every day, is walk that walk as best I can. Anyone else?
Okay. Like Loren was saying, the power of being a student and being close to that next generation and the generation after that. I've been asked multiple times, and I've given presentations to the local high schools because they see me, as going through high school. I've made it very known that I'm very passionate about my culture and passionate about education as well. And so I've been asked to come back, and I give presentations, and I'm standing in front of all my younger cousins, and they see me, and I feel like an example. I'm what, you guys can also be like, come on, follow me, It just makes me feel great to know that I'm part of the next generation, and like she said, a leader for the next generation after that.
to add on to that, my group on campus, NASO, allows me and my members to be proactive in the sense of we can demonstrate who we are, whether we have workshops or any sort of events on campus. And it allows all of us to build leadership skills too, being a student and working with a student organization. And my personal experience, before I got to URI, I wasn't in a space with many young scholars in the same point in life as I am. And it wasn't until I joined NASA last year till I saw saw many different scholars all together in the same place working together. And I feel like that's probably, in my opinion, the best aspect about being a student here and working with NASA is that I have a chance to be a leader to those around me and to build up scholars together.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else?
As an educator, I just want to speak to those that are educators in the room. There are indigenous and native pedagogies, ways and practices that you can incorporate into your classrooms. So I just really would just like to, that's what I do in my classroom. I incorporate it in the curriculum and map it out so that, the end result is what folks are looking for. But they do exist. You can look them up. You can incorporate them in your teachings. And there's more than one way to look at the world. And I just want to encourage educators to be further educated, to open the doors to the different possibilities of what education could look like.
Give it up for them. All right. What steps can you suggest that the university, you already kind of talked about this, but elaborate a little bit more. What steps do you suggest the university take to assist in establishing safe spaces for indigenous scholars?
It was mentioned at the very beginning about the need for more Native American faculty and staff on campus and more courses that include indigenous ways of understanding the world, I think is really critical to student experience. I feel like when I was here, I had zero of that. And I think it's sort of getting to maybe being a 1 or a 2 on the opportunities that include that. And when I say that, my daughter will be mad because I'm going to tell a quick story of her experience. One of the very first classes she took was a Native American Studies course during her summer at TD. And it turned into a whole fiasco because the professor that was teaching the class frankly didn't know what they were doing, and one of the projects they assigned them was for all the students in the class to create native tribes based on geography, so perpetuate stereotypes, misconceptions, and inaccuracies, and the whole 9 yards. So I think that when we can have students feel safe on campus is when that kind of thing can't happen anymore, because the faculty and staff have also gone through professional development that deepens their knowledge and also ensures that, along with anything they're talking about Native American culture nationwide, that they do a deep dive here in the Northeast, because what happens often is that's completely left out, like we don't exist. And so that I think in order for students to feel safe and feel heard, that should happen, and it should be more woven throughout the campus and not just in a Native American studies or literature class, but also, in engineering, also in education, in the training of new teachers, also in marine sciences, across the campus. And it's starting to happen, but I still think it's very much professor by professor rather than a systemic change. And that's where I go back to what I said at the beginning about systemic change to really make the impacts that we need and to tell the full and true history, which Mac has eloquently stated over and over again, in and across all this curriculum.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody
wants it?
Nobody wants that one?
What's the question?
The question was, what steps can you suggest the university take to assist in establishing safe spaces for Indigenous scholars?
Well, and again, their own space.
There it is.
So I'm going to kind of blend a little bit for the last question. So I taught high school and middle school for a long time, and there were some days that it just didn't go well, no matter how much I planned and prepared for that lesson. The students just weren't as enthusiastic about it as I thought they would be. But I remember reading these studies, and they said how much of a difference it made that I was there. Not necessarily all the stuff I was teaching, but just being there. A lot of schools that I taught at, I was the only person of color on faculty. And this was sometimes at schools that were 90%, right, students of color, right? So I think representation matters tremendously. You can tell people all day that they can do something and they can be something, but if they never see people like them doing those things and being those things, then it's just words. So I think, like Loren said, there has to be concerted, intentional efforts to make sure that students see themselves on campus. They have a space, they have people, a community, they have faculty and staff who are 100% about their success, right? I think those are some of the changes. And I know that they happen periodically and slowly, but if we're bringing a lot of these students, we're recruiting, or have this scholarship, we really need to do what we can to support them.
Thank you for that, Matt. All right. So our final question. In your capacity, either through reflection or within your current experience, what advice do you have for Native American scholars who are interested in pursuing higher education?
I'm going to go so I can stop talking. I'll be done. So again, I used to teach high school, and I had this class. It was called Success. It was filled with students who they were deemed as having significant challenges with being successful, whatever that meant. It was a lot of different reasons. One time I had a kid come in, and they had been absent the day before, and they used to call me Coach. They'd be like, Coach, I went to my medical appointment yesterday, and I got all the letters. And I didn't want to ask, what are you talking about? It's like, I got ADHD, OCD, ODD, and I was like, okay, right? So that's, and I used to tell those students, education is not for everyone, but you better make it for you. And I would say that to them because education opens so many doors, right? It really does. So I would advocate to all students, especially Indigenous students, to pursue education, right? Get those degrees, kind of like we were saying down here, because they matter, right? They matter to the community for sure, right? For generations to go, but they matter for you too. These are life-changing things. The cohort that I grew up with in my community, I'm one of the few that has the degree. My life is very different. They are transformative. Education is transformative.
So what would I say to you all? I would say what I say to almost every young person, no matter what, just persevere, get through it, because once they give it to you, they can't take it back. And you know, everything Mac said is absolutely true, that it's transformative in our lives. And when we think about something we can do to change generations, you know, we talk about the poverty in Native communities. I mean, we're disproportionately more impoverished in the state of Rhode Island than any other ethnic group. And when we think of that, education opens those doors. We know the barriers that have been put here because of education, but when we can empower Native students, make sure they have a place where they belong, we can make sure that there's curriculum that reflects their worldview as they're broadening it to other worldviews. That's all important. So I think that when they can have all of those things and be successful, they're actually breaking those the history of poverty in our communities. We might not be poor as far as our community is concerned, and our cultural knowledge and all of those traditional ecological knowledges that we have, but we need to break the economic poverty that's happening in our communities, and also change the mindset that we can't be both, right? So I came up in a generation that people used to say things like, well, you know, quotes like this, you're a book Indian kind of thing. So like if you learn something from school, then you're less indigenous. That's something I've totally pushed back on my whole entire life, and I think most people don't use that phrasing anymore. But it's important for young people to know that they need to also push those myths aside, and that you can be deeply entrenched and rooted in your community and get an education so that you can come back and break some of the barriers for the next generation. And I think I'm super proud of all the young people here, younger than me people, because I'm the oldest one on the panel. But I also think that, like, I'm grateful that people blazed a trail for me, and it was a wonky one. You know, my grandfather went to Bacone College out in Oklahoma. He was literally the first East Coast tribal person to go there and get a degree. My mother is the only one of her siblings who have a degree, and she got hers 6 months after I got mine. So she went the long, circuitous route to get there. And, you know, I'm proud that I have a degree and a master's degree and 2 honorary PhD degrees, because it's pushing forth opportunity for next generations. And right now I have one of my 3 children that has a degree. And I don't think everybody has to have a degree, but I do agree with Mac that they open up a lot of doors. And I guess my last thing I'll say to you, no matter what your degree is in, don't worry about that. Just get the piece of paper, because 90% of us aren't working the job that our degrees were. You know, my degrees are both in elementary education, and I did 20 years in elementary education, but now I'm a director of, as you know, Tamaqua Museum. And it's still education, just a different format. And I think it's good to know and for all the college students out here, it's really good to know that if you go, ooh, I'm 3/4 the way in, but I really want to do something else, get that first piece of paper, and you can always often get hired in the whatever you wanted to do, even if it's not your direct degree. So don't worry about that so much.
Sonia?
When I taught at high school, I was tasked with, I was an ELO teacher, which is an expanded learning opportunities teacher. I was the teacher that the students that couldn't pass U.S. History 1 would go see to recover that credit. So I feverishly tried to put together a curriculum that would then still give them the knowledge to go into U.S. History 2. So what I did was I taught the indigenous histories of the Americas. And I wanted them to understand that, because a lot of my students were Central American, they were indigenous, but they had this sense of belonging to the lands. And what I did was I took the curriculum of U.S. history and I flipped it into the eyes of the indigenous peoples during those times. What were we going through? What did we call the King's Philip War? What did we call the Battle of Longhorn and those type of things? But I say all that because during my class I would open it up with, do you know who John Rockefeller is? He was actually one of the founders of the Board of Education in America. And his quote was, "We do not want a nation of thinkers, we want a nation of workers." That stems back to the industrial times and the correlation with public schools. wanting to create STEM workers, science, technology, engineering, and math. And if they look upstairs, there was a police officer, an SRO. And things that happened in the school that would have warranted to detention, they were now being arrested out of the schools for, creating a school-to-prison pipeline. And why did I open my class up with this? Is because I wanted them to know that, oh, there's plans that have been set up, but you can have your own pathway. And learning who you are and to walk in your power is your truth. So when you speak truth to power, know that your truth is power. And so I just would like to pass on to the scholars that are interested in higher education. Create your path. You can design it to work for you, and not only you, but once you get the papers that can't be taken away, and you sit at the tables to open the doors for them, you are now helping a whole community after you helped yourself. So, thank you.
Our two current scholars, do you have any words of advice for future generations of Nassau members? Things that you wish you knew, that you know now, or things that you've heard today?
All I'd like to say about any advice is to be deliberate with what you want. In anything you do, any capacity, to be deliberate. Know what you want out of it and how you're going to get that.
Some advice I would give is to go get it, to go get your education. If you are interested in it, do it. You may not know the way, it may be hard, yes. Try. You know, it saddens me to know that I had a graduating class with multiple of my cousins, you know, tribal youth, and maybe 3 of us made it here. It saddens me to know that many of my boys and friends from the Powwow Trail aren't with me here, pursuing something more. And, you know, my father told me that my life, if I follow higher education, my life will be on a different trajectory. And I understand that. I see that. College and higher education it opens doors. It opens opportunities. I just wish that, you know, some of my cousins would say, oh, I wish I could go to college. I want to go to college. You can. Like, try. Come on. I did it. I'm here. Let's do it together. Like, just really go get it.
Just I guess I just wanted to add on to that, thinking about my mother. It's never too late, so encourage your cousins to know that it's never too late and that you can come back. And even with this scholarship, you don't have to be an incoming freshman from high school to utilize that as a Narragansett. And that's all. They have a big program at URI. I forget the name of it, but it's one of them's finish what you started. So sometimes also we have people that start and then don't finish, so they could finish what they started. But then there's also for people that are, you know, coming in that never went to college at a later date. So I just want to encourage our young people to also encourage their cousins that it's never too late just because you didn't do it in the traditional way. That opportunity is still there.
One more time. Before we close out, I want to thank you all for coming and spending your afternoon with us. I want to thank our panelists. Each of them means something special to me. Sonia and I hold familial ties. We share family together. These 2 young brothers, I can't wait to see how they grow and prosper as the future leaders of Nassau, even the current leaders of Nassau. Loren, you have been an amazing resource for me on this campus, not only with Nassau and NAAC, but just in general, always being able to rely on you. Dr. Max Scott and I go back to 2002 Summer Upward Bound program, and it's amazing to see you pursue and continue on with the education because, again, we see you. And this is now being documented, so not only does it for those who are here right now, but for future Nassau members and people of the community who want to know and share your story, or for you all to share your story, we appreciate you. And thank you for coming. Before we leave, Ms. Sonia Thomas is going to bless us with an elder's lullaby.
So thank you for choosing to be here with us today. We appreciate your time. And the Elder's Lullaby is a promise to the next 7 generations. The things that you may have learned here today, the promises that we would like to keep, pave the way for, especially dealing with higher education and the indigenous populations, the Native American populations. This is a promise to keep those things alive for the next 7 generations, and it's the Elder's Lullaby. Hamba, 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 hey ya. Hamba, hey ya, oh hey ya. Hamba, 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 hey ya. Hamba, hey ya, oh hey ya. Way, hey, 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 ya. Way, ya, way, ya. Hamba, hey, ya. Oh, hey, ya. Katavatash.
That concludes our program. Again, thank you all for coming. And again, Native 365, it's not just the month of November. Appreciate y'all. If there's any food, please feel free to take some on the way out. Okay. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm gonna put your hand.